Hi, my name is Johnny, and once again, I am recording something that might become a podcast, and maybe not. If you're hearing this, I actually um, put this on the internet. This beautiful cat, my mom's cat, is on my lap. Maybe you can hear it purring in the background. And yeah, I had this idea for a long time, and I did record something a few times, and then just let it sit there and not upload anything. And I'm not gonna go back to that. But maybe today is the day to finally do it. Yeah, maybe I find a name for this and upload it. I'm feeling super self-conscious now about the way I talk, about making pauses and everything. But I had this idea once again. I had the same thing before. This morning, this night, I woke up at it must have been 3 a.m. I had a alarm for 5 a.m. to go to work, and I woke up. It was still in the middle of the night, and I basically did a podcast in my head. Something I do a lot. So last night I was thinking, or in my head, in my thoughts, I was talking to my therapist. So there were things that I think a part of me is really eager to talk about certain things, but it was not in a way that I feel troubled. I feel like I have to get something off my chest. It was more, yes, things that I'm very excited to share and to, to talk about, to tell someone. It's not so much that I have questions. It's more that I have ideas or thoughts about myself, about realizations about myself, about things that I learned, and it seems like there's a part of me that really wants to share that. And sometimes I do have conversations with people where I do talk a lot, often after one or several cups of coffee, and I just had one, so maybe this is gonna be one of these times. So I think I'm gonna talk about a little bit about what I was talking about last night. Sometimes it's different people that I talk to. Sometimes it's when I had a conversation with someone. I think about all the things I didn't say, or the areas we didn't get to. So after the conversation, I keep talking to that imaginary person in my head. And sometimes it's just something I'm not talking to someone specifically. It's just let's say an imaginary audience, I would be lecturing or something. So that's been going on in my mind for a long time, and not always, not every day, but I often find myself in that headspace. And so I'm just gonna talk a little bit now. I feel a little bit like this, now I'm kind of on the spot. Now I'm trying to retell something and don't really have the this urge just coming from inside me. Because I'm guessing about 2 hours that I was just laying in bed and thinking about things. It was like exciting. I really enjoyed it. Like sometimes there's a part of me that's like, this doesn't this is not useful. I could just stop it and try to go back to sleep. And I did also try to go back to sleep, but I just wasn't. I was excited about talking. And yeah, I had the same situation a few times before in my life. The good thing is, by the time my alarm went down, I was already like quite awake. Usually I need some time in the morning to really wake up. But yeah, now I was awake and already excited. And yeah. So wow, yeah, I'm really self-conscious at the moment about my voice, and also what I want to share, what I might not want to share. Because a lot of what I was thinking about was things that I'm guessing you can hear the cat purr now. Oh, he's so cute. So I was thinking about events, and yeah, mostly events in my life that clearly show, in my view, autistic traits in myself. I think like maybe 2-3 years ago, I did like self-diagnose, and since then I'm constantly going back and forth between being very sure that I am autistic and me being like, maybe I'm just a little bit weird, or there's just some trauma going on, like there's some repressed emotions and I'm not so good at relating to people in some way. So yeah, I want to leave it open like that. I don't it's not so important for me anymore to say I'm this or that. But yeah, there's definitely traits that I was thinking about and really explaining, like, again, in my head, in my thoughts, to an imaginary person, no, to a person that I talk to in real life. But it was an imaginary version in my head. And that person doesn't respond. Like, it's just me going on and on and on, just like now. Like this one person podcast. And yeah, so I think when I was doing that, like towards the end, I was like, hell yeah, I'm autistic. Like these, I don't know, 10 examples I was going through in my head and explaining everything. It's like, yes, this, like, that's very obvious. And now again, I don't know. So the one thing that comes to my mind that I've been thinking a lot about, and I think I was talking about it to different people before too, is that I lived in a small town in Thailand, actually. Not even a town, it's a village. So like all the two busy streets are in the middle of the village, where all the bars and restaurants and stuff are. And there was a guy, I don't even remember his actual name, but let's say his name is Tim. And he was like a friend of a friend. I just saw him driving by here and there. So I wasn't close to him, but I saw him several times. I knew how he looks like, and I'm sitting in this bar, and like in the daytime, just hanging out with some friends, and this guy comes up, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's Tim." Like I think I was talking to him just a few days before, like shortly. And so I saw him, and I was like, "Oh hey Tim," and he looks at me. He's like, I'm not Tim. I don't know, Mark." He just said another name, and when I saw him, I was sure it's this guy. Like it's a small village. He looks exactly like him. Like it's this person, right? In my mind, I was 100% sure it's this person. In the moment he said, "Ah no, I'm Mark," I was completely like overriding that thing and was like, "Oh, that must be just by chance this person who looks almost exactly like him in the small village and comes to this place where it's like where people like we both know are hanging out." And I just believed him 100%. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. You look exactly like someone I know. And he was like, "Nah, I'm fucking with you, bro." And I don't know, somehow I remember this so vividly because the moment after I was like, what the fuck? How did I just think it's this one person? And a second later, I'm just thinking, well, I guess everything I believe must be wrong. Because he says he's not, he's someone else. So, yeah, things like that happen sometimes, that someone says something quite ridiculous or obviously not true. And I feel like there's a part of me who's like, why would he lie? Like, that's also, even if somebody lies, I'm like, why would he lie? I mean, right? What gain would he have from that? And there's probably a lot of reasons why people lie. I mean, I'm sure I lied in my life before. Yeah, I lied a lot to myself. I lied to other people too. But somehow I don't imagine other people to lie. At least not consciously, not being aware that they're saying something that's false. So, yeah, so that's one thing. And there was a situation like recently, maybe a week ago, at work where I was with 3 colleagues, they're all women, and we were talking about something. We were talking about age. There was a young person as an intern, and we were talking about that. And I wanted to make a point and started it with something like, I mean, I'm obviously the youngest in this room, and then 2 of them were like looking at me with kind of like disbelief. And when it was like, "Excuse me, how old are you?" And then I was like, 33, and she was like, "I think we're not friends anymore." So we're kind of jokingly, but I think she was actually upset. So they were like 4. Let me think. Yes, they were 4 and 6 years younger than me. But in my mind, they were older. Not because they look older, but because I think their life situations reflect more that of the idea of an adult in my mind. Because they, like, one of them said a few sentences before, like, "I've been working here for 10 years," and the other one is like pregnant with her second child, and I'm not married or having children or having a house, or I don't even have a fucking car. And I mean, that's not things that I want, so that's okay. But I feel like in our society, or let's say this, in my view of the world, somebody like that is more of an adult than somebody like me who sits in his room and plays the same song over and over, or speaks into a microphone. So they were a little bit upset. But there was a third colleague in the room, and she's obviously older than me, like obviously. But I just started working there recently, so I don't know them too well, and so the other two were kind of jokingly saying like, yeah, she's younger than you too. And first I was like thinking, yeah, that's a joke. I was like, nah. And then they kept insisting, like, still as a joke. And yeah, after the first time they said that, I was sure it's a joke. After the second time, I already started questioning myself. And this person is definitely older than 50. So yeah, so I was thinking, no, that's not true. And they kept insisting, and I was saying, no, like, I felt like I have to fight for that. I might have a short break here. Okay, I'm back. So yeah, it felt like I actually had to fight for my idea of reality. Because if that person was younger than me, it seemed like my whole reality is falling down. And yeah, after a few times back and forth, they were like, nah, we're joking. And it seemed to me like that was the end of the story. It was okay. But I realized the next day that this was actually a really stressful situation for me. And yeah, it was just another example of like how, well, in the end, these things, I guess, just show how gullible I am. I love this word. Gullible, which at the same time means like trusting. But yeah, I guess this is also one of the biggest challenges with these things, that communication sometimes can be difficult. Because I expect people to respond in a certain way, and that's not happening. So very simply, it's when I ask a question, I'm expecting that question to be answered, and sometimes people say something that doesn't answer the question, at least not in my perception. And I don't understand that. I don't understand why people talk about certain things in general. And then sometimes I don't, like, for me it's a very clear ask question. So for example, right now I'm working in a caretaking job, and I was asking my team leader what is this person allowed to do and what not. And then she set an example of something that happened, that that person did, that she was not supposed to do. And I was like, okay, I have an example of what she's not supposed to do, but I asked what is she allowed to do and not to do. And then I don't know how to say that, because in my mind I ask very clearly. So if I ask a very obvious, clear question and the person gives me an answer that doesn't answer the question but has something to do with it, but it doesn't answer the question, yeah, I'm like, well, how can I ask it even more clear if it was very clear and direct? And when I see people talking about this topic, especially people with autism that talk about that share their experience, or yeah, mostly that. There's some people I follow on social media and that they describe exactly that's their experience, that for them very clear direct communication is normal, and for other people it is not. For them different communication is normal. Now I have to laugh a little bit because that's ridiculous in my mind, but yeah, maybe that shows the point. I was thinking about something and just forgot. Um, yeah, there were some more points I was making in my mind last night. Oh yeah, the big one why I actually started looking into this and doing like self-testing and coming to the conclusion at that point to myself that I'm very likely have autism. I don't know what's the correct term, but I also don't really care. Was that I often had problems like relating to people's emotions, and so I had that friend at the time who was sometimes having very strong emotional reactions to something. So something would happen in her life that for me would be not a big deal, but for her it was. And she would like cry and say like, I don't know what to do. And I didn't have an emotional reaction. I was just like, I mean, yeah, it's nothing to do, whatever. And of course that didn't come, like, that's not a reaction that most people expect. Just as I don't expect someone saying something not clear towards as an answer to a clear question. Other people are not expecting someone to be like that unemotional when they are very emotional. And another big thing in that area is that I really don't miss people. And and it's still kind of hard. Like now I'm thinking like, am I really gonna release this? Because it sounds so, I don't know. I think a lot of people have a hard time dealing with that. Maybe I'm just thinking that it's not even true. But yeah, there's people I really love that that are important to me, that I spend a lot of time with. Some people I didn't even spend so much time with, but they're still very important to me. But when we part ways in whatever way, it's just okay for me. Like, I'm really happy to see them. There's people right now, if they would turn up at my door, I would be super happy and we would have a long chat and I would love that. But I'm not missing them in a way that I'm not sad that it's not that way. It will be great, but it's okay that it's not that way. And yeah, I have that with almost everything, like with people, with animals, with places. And in this area, like, I sometimes think that might be, like, in quotes, just repressed emotions. Like, I might just be repressing the emotions that usually would be there in these situations. So I always think of that as a possibility. At the same time, like, I don't see that consciously, but maybe there is something unconsciously going on in that area. But yeah, that's something, especially when people say something like, I missed you, like after we reunite after some longer time, or somebody says, I'm gonna miss you when we part, or I'm on the phone with someone says, I miss you. I would like, it would be so cool if we'd be together. I also think it would be cool to be together, but I don't miss them, and I also don't want, like, there's a part of me just that kind of is like, just say it, so they are happy. But there's a stronger part or something that's more important to me, which is to not lie and to truthfully say things. So that it's often uncomfortable, that situation, when somebody says something like that. I don't know what to say, or like, so I often don't say anything, but that's kind of, from my perspective, it might seem like that means I don't miss them, and which is true, but I think for some people that might feel like or sound like I also don't care about them, which is not true. But I had that this, I don't want to call it a problem, but there was a person in my life that did basically say like, you don't care about me, or like, you don't care about others, and you're so self-centered, which to this day I don't really see how it's bad to be centered in oneself. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the term. But yeah, that person, like, literally said, like, we can't be friends anymore because this doesn't work. And that's a thing that's okay for me. Like, if I don't know, it sounds bad. Sometimes I feel bad. Not bad. I'm wondering what I feel in this. There's a thought that says, like, this is, people are gonna hate you. They're gonna think you're like, you're psychopath or something. Because, like, I don't miss that person. We had great times and I learned a lot from them and I enjoyed that time and I'm grateful for it. And it's okay that we parted ways, that they decided to not be friends anymore. And I'd be open to for a conversation again if we meet at some point in our lives. Um, but yeah, so there was this point where these things would sometimes come up. Sometimes I would go for a while where I wasn't really aware of something being off in my life. Like I always had some friends, some closer friends, some people I could talk to very openly, and I'm very grateful for that too. But then there would be times where these things would come up, and I feel like weird and not normal, and I don't know, yeah, what's going on. Is there something off with me? And yeah, at some point I actually was like thinking like, am I maybe a psychopath or something? I don't even know what the real definition of that is. And so at some point I did a test for that. Like I just googled like psychopath test as like self test, and I did that, and it said like, yeah, you're most likely not. Which, yeah, was comforting in that moment. And then it said, but there's some traits that overlap with autism, so maybe you want to do a test for that. So I did that, and there was way more that I could identify with, and that score said like, yeah, you're quite likely to have autism. And yeah, again, I never sought out a evaluation by a clinician, nothing official. I might still do that. But that somehow gave me some comfort, and also like information. Like I said, I'm following a few people, or like now that I watch some stuff, of course, it's like my algorithm shows me more of that. And I try to be cautious and not believe everything. Because of course everybody can make a video and say something about autism, and who knows what's real and what's not. Or what's based in science, and what's based on actual experience, and what's just there to make clicks. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff I can identify with. There's some things where I don't identify with, and there, of course, skepticism comes in, where I'm like, maybe then I'm not that. At the same time, from what I understand, it's a spectrum. It doesn't mean that one has to have everything really strongly. And yeah, there's certain areas that I see more obvious in myself, or I also struggle with, and others I don't struggle with so much. And what's interesting to me too is that it's some traits, some symptoms fluctuate quite strongly. So one of them is definitely the sensitivity to sound. Like I am quite sensitive to light, especially artificial light. And if it's like this white, like bright neon lights, I don't really like it. It's like really overstimulating. And I think a lot of stores have that, like supermarkets. That's very uncomfortable. But yeah, there's times like right now I'm actually in a really good state and mood. Like we have beautiful weather, which helps a lot after a long winter. And so I feel like now it's not that bad. And the same is with sound. And I think sound is even stronger, like the sensitivity is stronger. But yeah, like I was thinking that today I was in the kitchen and putting some pots in a drawer, and I'm not happy. I don't really like the sound, but it's okay. But there's days where that is like just horrible. The clanking of pots and spoons and stuff like that. So I think for a long time I wasn't aware, or I was just assuming it's bad for everybody and just not understanding why people are not more careful. Like I do usually, especially when I'm more sensitive, I do things very deliberately. So I put things down very deliberately and slow, so it doesn't make a lot of noise because it's uncomfortable for me. But a lot of people don't do that, and yeah, that can be challenging sometimes. And I got noise cancelling headphones recently, like a few months ago, and that helps me a lot because I realize on the days that I'm actually quite sensitive, I can just put them on and walk around with them in the house and just cook with headphones on and put things in and out of the drawer, and it's just not bothering me. So in a way, I feel like, yeah, having some word for it and knowing there's other people struggling with the same things, even if I might not technically fall into the same category, it helps. And yeah, I don't know. I just saw myself as a weirdo for a long time, and with a negative. What is that word? Connotation, something like that. Like weirdo was like bad. Like there's normal people, there's weirdos. Like now, I kind of still think of myself as a weirdo, but not in a bad way. I think it's amazing. I love weird people, and I can see how I feel like being weird. Oh, maybe let me use different words, like quirkiness, doing things differently, like this. Sometimes being direct, it's like I think it can help other people to kind of shake them a little bit off of their trance of, like, in quotes, normal life, where it's like just I just do everything the way because that's just the way I do it. And I feel like, for example, children can do that too, because they are often very straightforward and have the same thing. Like I can often identify with that, like they often don't understand sarcasm. So somebody says something sarcastic and they say why, and they don't understand that it's a joke, that they don't really mean it. And I do sometimes understand sarcasm. I even use it, and irony and these things, but sometimes I don't. Like, yeah. And sometimes I think things are funny, hilarious, and others don't, and the other way around. So yeah, I think it's beautiful to be weird and ridiculous sometimes, and yeah, for example, because of that gullibility, if that's a word, and like there's also an naiveness sometimes. I I do things and try things that I would never try or others wouldn't try. Like others say, "Wow, you're so brave doing this," and I was thinking, no, I was just not considering the risk, um, because I didn't understand that. Uh, yeah, or there are things that a lot of people maybe would say like, no, that's just something you don't do. That people, we don't do that, right? And I'm thinking like, why not? Like, I don't have the, I don't feel the need to be seen as a normal person, because I know that even if I try, I can't really. And I want to come back to that in a moment. So yeah, sometimes I like just dance across the street and whirl or say some ridiculous things because whatever. I don't need to be seen as someone serious so I can get a nice job or whatever. But trying to be seen as normal, I I guess, I mean, I guess there's a part of me that does want that, at least in a certain way, or at least doesn't want to be, doesn't want to be seen in that light of being weird, but in a bad way. Whether like, maybe then there are also some fear, maybe like he's weird, maybe he's doing some bad stuff, so we stay away from him. So I guess that's some kind of fear. And then I think, or like, I'm realizing more and more that there's a lot of unconscious things going on when it comes to masking, which for those who maybe don't know or haven't heard of it is basically describing that people, and I think we all do that, I actually think like almost every person does that, like pretending to be different, like like putting on a mask and doing things that you would usually not do to appear normal or accepted in society. So, for example, in autism, a very common thing is that people find it hard to look someone in the eye, and so for some people it's really difficult or almost impossible. Like, it's very uncomfortable, and it's not that for me. But sometimes it is, or with certain people it is, and in certain situation it is uncomfortable. It's and it helps me to focus, especially if I'm trying to think of something or trying to phrase something. It helps me to not look at someone. I feel like it's distracting me from talking or listening. And like, when I came across that topic of masking, I was thinking like, nah, I don't think I do that. I mean, yeah. And now I realize more and more that I think I do. Again, I think we all do. So it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody's autistic or neurodivergent in some way. But yeah, I realized that it's not super uncomfortable for me, but it's not natural to look people in the eye or in the face even when talking. And like, becoming more aware of that, I started not necessarily, depending who I talk to in what situation, to just not look at that person, because I used to feel kind of guilty for that, being like, well, there must be something wrong with me because I can't look at that person. And now I kind of tried that and realized that I can be communicative, but not feeling like looking at that person. And then I would just look down on the floor, close my eyes, or whatever feels right in the moment, and I could still have a good conversation. Of course, if that is with someone who doesn't have an awareness, understanding of that, it can be confusing and maybe distracting for them. But I do become more aware of how much I am actually masking in a lot of situations. And yeah, I think we all do it. I think we all act differently with different people. Even like I realized I'm very different if I'm alone with one person. Can have very specific conversations, and then if there's another person or more other people in on the same table, for example, it's very different. I mean, of course, the conversations will be different with more people. But I also realized like I use very different, like this fundamentally different behavior, different way of talking, and yeah, I feel like it's often like some kind of uncomfortable feeling, like insecurity that's being overplayed. For example, with jokes. So that has been also a big part of my life, and I can see now how when I allow myself to not do that, like for example to look away while talking to someone, or put on headphones in a loud room. Like I started doing that at work because first I thought seems like rude, or it seems like inappropriate to put on headphones in a room with other people. But when there's like 6-8 people in a room talking, like and there's different conversations going on at the same time, it's it's just too loud. The volume is bothering me, and at the same time there's a part of me who wants to follow each conversation separately, and that's overwhelming. So yeah, I just put on the headphones and I realized it's helping a lot. And yes, people ask questions. I'm like, are you listening to music or are you drowning out us? And yeah, try to explain that. Like usually I don't say I think I'm autistic. I just say I'm sensitive to sound, and that helps. And usually people are understanding. Like I realize there's so many fears that I used to have, that things are not acceptable. And yeah, people think like, oh, he's weird and there's something wrong with him and stuff. And maybe they're thinking that, but like openly towards me, usually there's a lot of acceptance, understanding, which is really nice. I'm realizing that I think the sleep deprivation is kicking in. I'm not as excited and energized talking about that I was last night, but it's still nice to say some of these things out loud. And I really, really hope I'm gonna air this, and some people can listen to it. I have some friends that have been saying before, like, please do it. I would love to hear your thoughts, even if it's just these random thoughts, or maybe especially that. So maybe it's just those 2 people that are gonna listen to that. But yeah, that's great. To those 2 people or 3, I love you very much. I love you, also everybody else who's listening to this. I hope you have a great time. I hope there's gonna be more of this. Definitely let me know if you want more of this. If you are asleep already, you're not. If you don't respond, I'm assuming you fell asleep already, because I also heard that my voice can be soothing to fall asleep. Which also means I could keep doing that, because helping people fall asleep is a good thing too. And I'm gonna leave you with that. And let's see how this thing will be named, and if there's gonna be some kind of outro. Everything to be determined. But I'm happy. I finally started doing this, and I'll leave you with that. Take care. Until next time. Love you, Johnny.